As cyclists, we often worry about the dangers that we face out on the road. It could be the threat from cars or general traffic, perhaps fast descents. We're pretty vulnerable generally, but yet there's something that we are really vulnerable to, but that many of us either don't know about or simply choose to ignore. And yet it's so dangerous. In the United States alone, it kills 2 people every hour. In other parts of the world, the risk is even higher. I'm talking about skin cancer. There's loads of research out there that shows how beneficial cycling is to your health, including lowering your risk to some cancers. But yet, we're extremely vulnerable to skin cancers. Why? Because 90% of non-melanoma skin cancers and 86% of melanomas can be attributed to UV radiation. I think it's high time we had a bit of a wake-up call. To find out more, I've come to meet up with Dr. Emma Ormerod, a consultant dermatologist here in the UK. I want to know what we can do to protect ourselves and what the warning signs are that means we should head to see a doctor. Right, so what is skin cancer?
Well, skin cancer is the out-of-control growth or multiplication of abnormal cells in the skin. And as you probably know, there's different types of skin cancer. Most common ones that you probably will have heard of are melanoma skin cancer, basal cell carcinomas and squamous cell carcinomas.
So what causes skin cancers?
Well, as with other sorts of cancer, it's a mix really of environmental factors, which for skin cancer is mostly UV exposure, and genetic factors. And we know that there are some inherited genetic factors which are important for skin cancer. So there's some known genes which play a role, and there's also some inherited characteristics such as very pale skin that freckles easily, or having a large number of abnormal or unusual looking moles. They put you at increased risk of skin cancer. So anybody with a first degree relative, a parent or a sibling who's had a skin cancer will be at increased risk compared to other people in the population.
Okay, and what about, so you mentioned about pale skin and freckles, what about people with darker skin as well? Are they still at risk of skin cancers?
Certainly they are. We know that black skin, the research shows that black skin has a natural SPF or sun protection factor of about 13.5 compared to about 3.4 in white skin. So they do have some natural protection from the sun, but people with brown and black skin can still develop skin cancers, and the same sort of protective and advice will apply to them. So the sort of things you're looking for a melanoma skin cancer would be any changing mole or any new pigmented lesion or unusual growth on the skin, or anything that's very different to the rest of your skin, really. When we as dermatologists look at moles, we use an ABCDE rule to look at a mole to identify any features which are worrying, and people can do that with their own moles at home when they're checking them. So A stands for asymmetry of the mole. If you were to cut it in half, do the 2 sides look the same or vaguely similar? B for border. Is the border irregular, notched or blurred? C for colour. Are there 2 or more different colours in a single mole? The diameter of the lesion is important, so greater than 6 millimetre diameter. And E for evolution of the lesion. Is it changing over time? And any new lesion or any lesion that's developing symptoms such as itching or bleeding which doesn't settle down should prompt some concern and for someone to go and get their mole checked.
Okay.
And then obviously there's the other skin cancers as well, the basal cell and the squamous cell carcinomas, which present in slightly different ways, and they would be any new lump or bump on the skin, something that's changing or growing, might be painful, or an open, sore or non-healing area which just doesn't settle down over time.
What is a pigmented lesion? Well, what's the difference between that and a mole?
So same. So a pigment is the brown colour in the skin. So a pigmented lesion is a freckle or a mole, something with that brown colour, black colour.
So what are the signs then that someone should go and see a doctor?
I think there's a wide range of personality probably, and that some people will seek help very early and be quite worried about their moles or their skin, and that might be influenced by having a friend or family who's had a mole that's had to be removed or has had a skin cancer, and other people who would prefer to bury their head in the sand and not get things checked out. But as I said before, most skin cancers are preventable or very easily treatable. So getting these things checked out early is much better than sitting on it.
And what can we do to try and protect ourselves from the risk of skin cancer in the first place then?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, UV exposure is the most important environmental factor for the development of skin cancers. So being sensible about sun exposure and UV exposure is the most important thing we can do. And by that I mean not using sunbeds and tanning salons with artificial UV. And then when you are out and about, trying to protect your skin either with sun cream, covering up with sleeves, a hat, sunglasses, trying to seek out the shade if you possibly can, and avoiding the very hottest parts of the day between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. when the UV rays are going to be at the highest. And then, as we've mentioned, getting your skin checked if you're worried about anything. But also, if you have a lot of moles, becoming familiar with your own skin so you know what moles you have, and then you will be able to recognise whether they're changing or you're developing any new moles or lesions on your skin. The best way to do that if you have a lot of moles is to take some photographs of your skin, because it's really difficult to keep track of them otherwise. But taking some photographs, you've got a baseline and then you can refer back to them and you know whether there's anything new or changing. It's probably a really good idea if you have lots of moles.
Cool. And how much sun cream should we be applying as well?
Yeah, good question. So as a general rule, people just don't apply enough sun cream. And the problem with that is that you will then not reach the amount of protection that's listed on the bottle. So you'll be having a lower SPF protection than you think you're getting from the listing. It's recommended that you use about 2 teaspoons of sun cream to cover your face, neck and arms if they're exposed, or 2 tablespoons to cover your whole body, excluding your swimsuit area. So quite a lot more sun cream than probably most people apply.
Yeah, that is a lot actually, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And are we talking heaped teaspoons or level teaspoons?
More is better.
Really?
Yeah.
Literally, more is better.
Well, you get more protection. The more sun cream you put on, the more you're going to be protected, more adequately you're going to be protected.
So what factor sun cream should we be using then, and how often should we be applying it?
So the general recommendation is that you reapply your sun cream every 2 hours, but if you're sweating or you're in water, then you need to apply it more often than that. So obviously applicable to cyclists who might be outside for a long period of time.
So I don't think I've ever seen a bike rider reapply sun cream. So
it's also really difficult when you're sweaty, isn't it, to put sun cream back on?
Yeah. But should we be doing it?
Yeah, so it's definitely if you're sweating excessively, then it's not going to have the same amount of protection that it did when you first put it on.
And we're here on a beautiful British summer's day with complete cloud cover. Are we still at risk now? I mean, should we be applying sun cream on a day like today?
Yeah, so it's something you need to think about all year round. As I touched on, there's different sorts of UV rays. So the main ones that that we get down here that is relevant to us, the UVA and UVB. UVC tends to get filtered out by the atmosphere. So about 5% of the UV rays we're exposed to is UVB, and they're responsible for burning the skin and also some sorts of skin cancer. They are seasonal, so they tend to be highest in spring, summer times and in the hottest parts of the day. UVA rays, which is responsible for the 95% of what we're exposed to, causes aging of the skin, so wrinkles, pigmentation change, textural change in the skin, but also some skin cancers. And that is present in constant amounts all year round, can penetrate cloud cover, can penetrate glass windows, and will reflect off surfaces. So
even if you're inside?
Yeah, you're exposed to UVA. And
then are some areas of the world different to others in terms of UV radiation?
Yeah, so good question. Certainly important to think about where you are in the world and other factors that might influence your UV exposure. So I guess the important things are ozone layer. We know that the ozone absorbs a lot of UV, so provides a protective filter to ultraviolet rays. And those areas of the world where the ozone's thinner, you'll be exposed to higher amounts of UV radiation. Altitude's really important, so for every 1,000 meters you go up in altitude, you get about a 10% increase in ultraviolet radiation. Nearer the equator, so the sun has to travel through less atmosphere as you get nearer the equator, so again higher UV exposure the nearer you are to the equator. And I guess the final thing to think about is reflection off surfaces, so all UV rays will be reflected off surfaces. Things like soil and grass, probably less than 10% gets reflected. Sand, maybe about 15%, sea foam, 25%. Snow and ice up to 80%, so you're almost doubling your UV exposure if you're near or on those surfaces. So all important things to think about when you're considering how much UV you might be exposed to. Clouds, definitely important. So some of the UV rays will be absorbed by cloud, but light clouds can actually increase your UV exposure by causing some scattering of the rays. So can't be fooled by a cloudy day, still a significant amount of UV out there.
Yeah, so really the message is
sunscreen all year round.
Sunscreen all year round and reapply it, either that or cover up.
Yeah.
Well, both. It's quite important to some bike riders, certainly. Can you still have a tan and be protected from skin cancer and UV radiation?
I mean, this isn't going to be the answer you want to hear, but there is no such thing as a healthy tan, I'm afraid. So your pigment cells, the melanocytes, produce pigments when they've been exposed to excess sun to try and protect themselves. So tan is a sign of skin damage and DNA damage. So yeah, I'm afraid not.
So no more
tanning.
Right, no more tan lines. My word. Okay. And what about vitamin D? I spoke in the introduction about how beneficial cycling is to your health. I think vitamin D is one of those things where we're out and about, exposure to the sun makes us feel good as well. But can you still get your vitamin D and be protected from skin cancer at the same time?
Yeah, well, so you're right that UVB in particular helps with vitamin D production in the skin. You can get vitamin D from other sources, so eggs, fish, fortified milks all contain some vitamin D, and you can take supplements of vitamin D. Probably the best thing to do is to get 5 or 10 minutes of UV exposure on a daily basis. And there's no evidence yet to show that sun cream prevents vitamin D absorption, but maybe trying to expose your skin for 5-10 minutes early in the day when the UV rays not at its strongest is beneficial for vitamin D production and to maintain healthy levels of vitamin D, and just for general health and well-being. Sun makes everyone feel good, being outside's good for you. So yeah, in terms of general health benefits, getting a little bit of sunlight every day is beneficial.
Before making this video and speaking to Dr. Ormerod, I knew about skin cancer, and I thought I knew about the risks as well, but 100% this has given me a wake-up call. Not that I'm now scared, but just that I'm aware of and do take the preventative measures that are available to me. Yes, sun cream can be a massive faff, but it's absolutely not that bad, and certainly not in the grand scheme of things. So huge thank you to Dr. Ormerod for her time. Skin cancer is, I'm sure, something that's affected a lot of you out there. So if you feel comfortable doing so, please share your experiences in the comments section down below. What's that? Oh, right. Is it gone?